industry, right? The on-demand industry is changing the way that people work. Should I hold it closer? Okay. So the on-demand industry is changing the way that Americans are working. 1 in 3 workers are now independent contractors, which I'm sure you know. The food space alone is quite a competitive landscape. So tell me, Tony, can you kind of like set it up for our audience, like what exactly is DoorDash doing and how do you differentiate from some of the others that are out there right now?
Sure. I mean, I think to start, it is a very, very large market, right? I mean, the percentage of dual income households in this country has, more than 10 times, grown 10 times, over the last 50 years. And, pretty much suggesting that, people are increasingly seeking convenience, I think, in all forms, whether that's, food, transportation, other types of daily needs. So I think to start, let's recognize that it's a, incredibly large market. Specifically for DoorDash, we founded the company to build a delivery network, for local businesses, and specifically the way to do that for us was always the bet on creating the technology infrastructure in order to actually serve a very complicated 3-sided network of consumers, our dashers, our delivery partners, and as well as our merchants. And so for us, the fundamental core thesis was it possible to build a software-enabled logistics company, which was fairly different from at least what we saw the traditional incumbents take.
And tell me, we were chatting a bit earlier and you were saying that it takes about 20 different things to happen on the back end for one delivery to happen, right?
It's a lot more complicated than just building an app to get you something delivered, in the time that
So another part of your product or part of your business is your dashers that you're relying on, which is your delivery network. You said that when you first started DoorDash at Stanford, you and your co-founders were doing some of the deliveries yourselves for the first 9 months or so, I think you said. So tell me about that experience. I mean, what did you learn when you were actually having to do these deliveries with your co-founders and didn't have dashers doing that yet?
So at DoorDash, on 1 second. Okay, sounds better. So at DoorDash, one of our biggest core values is the belief in what we call first principles, and that really means that does not mean to reinvent the wheel every single time, but it certainly does mean to understand a problem for the problem's sake. And so whether that's dashing, building merchant products, consumer products. Every team member at DoorDash participates in that activity before actually, trying to build a solution for it. And so, when you dash, and yes, my co-founders and I did dash for every day, Monday through Sunday, the first 6 months of the company. You learn many things. You learn, about, wait times. You learn about, temperature cooling effects of different types of food. You learn about parking tricks. You learn about all the small things that you would never think about as a consumer of a product like ours, but actually as the supplier or the delivery partner for the service.
Do you ever still step in and do that?
Once a month, once a month I still dash personally. I answer customer support probably daily. So definitely, again, the concept of practicing what we believe in terms of really understanding a problem from first principles, that's really how you get better at serving your audience.
Another thing that we had kind of addressed backstage was, you have to rely on your dashers to be opening their app every day, so that you can continue to have people making these deliveries. How do you ensure that your dashers are happy and keep turning on their apps and taking deliveries?
So it's not easy. We have to find product market fit for each side of our audience, right? It's not just product market fit for our consumers. Again, this is not a consumer app. I wish it were that simple.
And for our Dashers, product market fit really means providing them a flexible way to work and an easy way to work, right? Supporting them when they need it and making it transparent, what it is they're going to get out of every unit of time they spend with us.
And to that end, the whole 1099 W-2 debate. So for those out there who kind of haven't been following this so much, some on-demand companies have gone ahead and made some of their delivery people employees. So that means they're getting benefits, health benefits, that sort of thing. You guys have chosen not to do that, but can you tell me a little bit about why it makes sense for you to keep them as contract workers?
So again, a lot of this depends on how do you find product market fit with an audience. And one of the most important features I would articulate about finding product market fit with our Dashers is the ability to offer flexible work. That means our Dashers can turn on and off the app whenever they want, wherever they want. And for us, it's about respecting that. And respecting that, obviously, in the confines of the legal and regulatory system that we live in. And so, that's the position that we're taking, right? How do we best serve, our audience and offer what they want?
And to give a little bit more context about Doordash, so you guys were in 2 markets 2 years ago, and then you are now in 22 markets. So you opened 20 new markets, I believe, in the past year, right?
Yes. So we started January 2015 in 3 markets, and then we started January of this year, 2016, in 22.
So tell me a little bit about what it's like to open a new market, what exactly that entails on your end, but then also this idea of maintaining the Doordash culture. How do you maintain the culture in opening these new markets?
So the maintenance of the culture is certainly harder than the first point around launching a market. So launching a market is really about finding a repeatable set of activities in which our launch team frankly by now can do in their sleep. And it's coming together with a checklist of items in order to do that in a timeline that we set for each market. In terms of how we think about preserving the culture, it's really about how do we hire the right people. Hiring is not the end-all be-all of how you continuously improve a culture, but it certainly is a nice starting point. And so for us, it's making sure no matter how long it takes for us to hire a local team in a market, especially in a city where we don't know many people, to actually do that due diligence, go the extra distance if necessary, go without hiring for up to a year sometimes in our situation, but making sure that we find the right fit from the beginning.
And you mentioned also the kind of close quarters.
Right. So we started Doordash out of a 2-bedroom house, and we purchased all of the furniture in that house for $2,000 from IKEA in cash actually, and we tried to replicate a lot of the elements of that house in each of the markets that we launch. And yes, part of that means working in close quarters. A lot of fast decision making and fun, frankly, happens in tight quarters, we found. And at the same time, if we again hire the right people, the concept of how we live frugally and things like this kind of go hand in hand.
So along with finding the right people and kind of sourcing, employees or Dashers, where do you source Dashers, for instance? I mean, I read a stat that I think it was 58% of delivery drivers for like startups like yours are being sourced on Craigslist, and I'm wondering if that's still like something that you're using. Is that your primary means, or is it referrals from friends? Like, what is it?
So, the general advice here is how do you target an audience, right? And for us, it starts with figuring out who might that be. So yes, perhaps we might start with a channel like Craigslist, which is fairly broad and non-targeted. But once we start understanding who the audience is, and it might be different people in different cities, we try to go and hang out where they might hang out. That's the general purpose advice I'd offer anyone here. Again, that advice can be applied whether it's to Dashers in your question or to your consumers or to, in our situation, also our merchants.
What is the hardest part so far? Like, what has been the hardest thing in the past couple years that you've been running Doordash?
The hardest part is always about maintaining quality at the pace of your quantity growth. Doordash has grown faster every single month than the previous month. While that is a great thing, for a business, making sure that the quality bar is increasing at the same rate is very, very challenging to do. That's true from a product point of view. That's true from a service level point of view. Obviously, when you're growing at that pace, your problems sometimes grow exponentially, right? So, for example, communications might break down within teams and also across teams, so you have this multiplying effect. So how do you constantly improve communication, within the company? How do you constantly, increase the hiring bar even at the company? So keeping up that quality with the quantity growth has been by far the biggest challenge.
And there has been quite a lot of attention and focus on the valuations, right, around Silicon Valley companies and the fundraising process. You guys have had headlines about Doordash, for instance, in their fundraising and kind of eyeing this billion-dollar valuation. Can you tell me a little bit about that process, like about the funding process, fundraising process, how the headlines possibly distract, and kind of what is about that billion-dollar valuation? Like, is that important, or is that important to the scale of the business? I mean, tell me your thoughts there.
So at Doordash, we've never actually focused on valuations. In fact, there's no financing in which we revealed our valuations. And we do that because it does not communicate any customer benefit, right? And frankly, it's also a number that's largely determined by investors, not by the company. And so for us, we're always thinking about how do we best serve our three audiences, right? Is this decision going to be in the best interest of our consumers, our Dashers, and our merchants? Valuations don't fit in that kind of equation. And so for us, so long as we can, best serve our three audiences, the valuation will take care of itself.
Is there pressure to open up like 20 more markets this year or 30 markets? Like, do you have to constantly keep trying to beat, your previous rate of opening up new markets?
I don't think there's like an artificial number that, we ever go for, right? If there are great opportunities, we certainly will seek them. But it wasn't like, oh, we must launch 20 markets in 2015, and that's why we did. We saw lots of great opportunities, and that's why we ultimately made those decisions.
And seeing the opportunities, what are some of the things that you look for when you do open a new city or a new market?
Sure. The core thesis for Doordash is really bringing selection to the marketplace that never delivered before. So most people might be surprised to know that 85% of restaurants in America don't deliver. Outside of restaurants, 99% of businesses don't deliver. And so it's really finding whether or not that thesis fits that market, right? So every market, we look for that figure. Is this true? Yes or no? We have some understanding of our customers, obviously, from the markets that we've already launched. We try to find a similar match. We have a pretty good understanding of how well to serve each of our audiences. So can we justify that playbook for that new market? And again, from first principles, think anew whether or not we're going to have the same product market fit for each audience.
And looking forward, I mean, we're only in February of this year. So what is kind of your hope for this year? What do you hope that by the end of the year, you guys will have accomplished, or what do you expect that you guys will kind of have under your belt by then?
So 2016 obviously is really a year for us about, I would say, adding to the momentum that we've had in 2015, right? Certainly you'll see new markets, you'll see new types of partnerships. it's also a year about building, a very strong foundation for an enduring business, right? I mean, recently we've started adding to our management team, where we both hired a VP of engineering. He was the third person on the technical side at Square, and more recently a chief operating officer who used to be the SVP of North America at eBay. And so you'll see us both from a product point of view as well as from a company point of view start to lay the groundwork for an enduring company that's more setting foundation for many years to come.
You've said previously that Jeff Bezos is one of kind of your icons, right? Or your how did you phrase it?
I don't think I said he was my
Not icon, but
he's certainly someone I look up to.
Exactly, look up to. So with that said, I mean, Amazon kind of looking further into this space, is that to you, is that a threat, or is it not the same kind of product that you guys have and consumer that you have?
So I think large companies will always find reasons to invest in new opportunities, right? And that's because they, like small companies, have motivations to grow. And certainly if there are large markets that small companies seem to be attacking, I think it's probably a sign of validation that they're entering some of these markets. But for us, the way we think about competition at DoorDash is, frankly, to not think that much about it. But instead think about how can we, again, best serve our three audiences. And so long as we can do that and build defensible positions in each respective audience, that more than anything else is what we focus on.
Cool. Is there anything else that you want to mention? And then otherwise we'll get people to kind of start lining up if they want to ask questions for Tony.
Let's get some of the audience involved.
Okay, cool. Does someone have a mic for them? Oh, okay, perfect.
So, when you were starting, like, what was your focus initially on? Was it to fix the product market fit, or to build a great product in the beginning, or it both went in parallel?
It was definitely to do both, but it was more to find product market fit within one very small use case, right? For us, at DoorDash when we got started, we were really testing three different, or trying to answer three different questions, right? One, is this something that people actually want? Again, this might sound counterintuitive, but if 85% of restaurants don't deliver, there might be a good reason why, right? So is this something that consumers even want? Two, is this something that restaurants even want? And three, can we actually partner with enough dashers such that we can make this a reliable service, right? So those are the three questions we were most interested in answering in the beginning, and still is in many ways. Do you want to be MC?
Oh, okay. Let's go here.
I was just wondering, at DoorDash, can you talk about the strategy a little bit, how you guys differentiate from your competitors? Then I recently went to Indianapolis and then you went to Toronto internationally. I think you just got an international deal with Kentucky Donuts too. So what is the reason for going to places like Indianapolis where the frequency might be lower or the market's not as small?
So again, we pick markets that fit our core thesis, right? Where is there a selection that actually offers delivery, right? And the good news is, in the vast part of North America, the answer is no. Outside of a place like New York City, just about no one delivers. And so, for us, whether it's markets like Toronto, like you mentioned, or Indianapolis, they're both equally attractive to us. Thank you. Awesome.
Second question, how do you optimize between like growth and increasing profits? Because I always notice like, yeah, $1 delivery, track like how long it takes from that, the San Francisco to come go to Nola, wait to go to Lisbon, that's like an hour. It used to cost me like $5. And like those economics, like how do you optimize your side limits time to like more profitable?
So there's no great answer to that question for any business. It really, the best advice I can give in this area is, how do you really understand your P&L? And how do you really understand the unit economics of each transaction, regardless of what type of business you offer, right? In our situation, we have 3 audiences that we serve. In yours, it may be that number or a different number, and really testing different levers of how your P&L actually works. If you understand what you're doing, which is a very big if statement, the economics will work. But the constant, the relentless approach towards understanding your own operations is really the only thing that you can do to actually figure that out.
Is there a market that you're profitable now?
There are many markets where we are profitable.
What's your vision looking out like 5 years from now, 10 years from now, for how food ordering is going to be done and how food delivery is going to be done?
So the original vision for DoorDash actually had nothing to do with delivery or food. The motivation came from wanting to help small businesses. So my mom's been a small business owner her entire life, actually. She still runs the third of her businesses, which is a very admirable feat for 17 years now. And so once, though, my co-founders and I kind of discovered the idea for delivery through a set of, frankly, like first-person activities, the vision was always, is it possible to build a delivery network for local businesses in every city we enter? Sure, that includes deliveries from restaurants. That should include, however, deliveries from other types of small businesses as well. And whether that's deliveries from businesses to consumers, or businesses to one another, or consumers to businesses, we want to ultimately become the piping in every city for last mile delivery, right? Just like you don't think about, probably when you turn on your light switch or when you turn on the faucet for your water, we want to become the utility for last mile delivery.